anyway, so you see also a huge uptick in divorce. Let me go back to my slide here. You see a huge uptick in divorce. There's a demise of the nuclear family. And this brings about with it huge social dislocation. So there's an immense rise in fatherlessness. Obviously, when people divorce, they don't often stay in the same location. Men sometimes, just abdicate all responsibility and take off. They're not really bound anymore by the marital bond, or legally bound to the woman and child, other than to sort of pay, alimony and child support. But in terms of being present, there many homes don't have fathers. And there have been so many studies on how disastrous it is for children, both boys and girls, not to have a father, right? And we live in a society which demonizes men, right? But men, the presence of a man in the house, I'm not saying, some men are tyrants, but in general, the presence of the father in the home, a strong father figure, is very, very critical for the health of children and the stability of children and therefore of society, right? And so this rise in fatherlessness is correlated with a rise in delinquency. Yeah. Also, of course, a rise in single motherhood, and then also single female poverty, because it's these single mothers who are left with these kids who are often left fending for themselves, working and trying to raise them at the same time without the help of a father, materially and also sometimes financially as well. Anyway, so you have a lot of, and so when you look at are families perfect? No. Are we saying that, okay, before the 1960s, everything was hunky-dory and of course not. The idea is that the world is not perfect. This is not Jannah, it's not paradise. But the question is, what is the arrangement that is going to lead to the greatest amount of kind of human success, possibility of human flourishing, both again, physically, but also emotionally, morally, spiritually in this life and the next? That's what Islam is going for. And the idea is that a strong, stable family unit is absolutely critical for that. It's critical for the stability of society and the health of society in aggregate and for individuals. And because sexuality is so tightly bound, we'll see this later on too, because it's so tightly bound to the family system, that is why norms surrounding sexuality are so stringent. And really any society, I'd say sexuality is so central to who we are as human beings, right? And this is also a big part of the LGBT discourse, so central to who we are as human beings, individually and collectively, that no one is really truly nonchalant about it. Whatever moral norms you or your society hold about sexual norms, you tend to feel them very deeply and very viscerally. Mm-hmm. So if you grow up in a society where monogamy is the norm, or heterosexual norm is the norm, and so forth, like in the West until recently, then you have like a very strong reaction against things like homosexuality. It'll just seem like very bizarre and very weird and very like wrong. Now, if you grow up in the contemporary West, where homosexuality and heterosexuality have been equated, and all of the relevant differences between them have been done away with or denied or whatever, and you don't see why there should be a distinction, you're going to feel really strong about why you discriminating against, same-sex relationships. But people tend to feel very strongly about it because sex is very important, it's very powerful, and it's very central to human life. It's not something that really any society, including the modern.
And also, I think that the new, you've not called it by its name, wokeism, or the new, I think it's a religion anyway. It's not just an ideology. It has the characteristics of a religion. So it has its fundamental creed. It has its sinful aberrations. You're not allowed to commit heresy, in other words, disagree with it. And so it's not just that sex is a powerful and emotive subject, yes, of course, but also ideologically, it has the characteristics of a religion with all that that means for the other and the demonization of a heretic. And of course, in a Christian West, a post-Christian West, what did you do with heretics? You persecuted them or you executed them. So that this kind of binary kind of thing is very strongly in American post-Puritan culture, I would argue. There's also still here in England and in Europe. You have this kind of quasi-religious impulse, which is also infusing this wokeism, which I think is a quasi-religion.
Right. And you're right about that. And there are a lot can be said about, we could have a whole separate, talk about that. But yes, you're absolutely right. And that's a big issue too, that, that really influences a lot the way this kind of discourse is deployed and takes place in the current scene. So